Hey, it's Mazzy here, and welcome back. Enjoy the show. Here's another ranking video, and one of my favorite bands of the last 25 plus years, 30 years almost now, is Radiohead. And I'm going to do a ranking of Radiohead's 9 studio albums from my take, my personal take on it, and just a little background how I got into them and my little journey, my 30, 28-year-old, 27-year-old journey, 25-year-old probably, journey into Radiohead. What I love about Radiohead is they started out as sort of a guitar-based band, and after 3 albums, they alienated half their audience, and they got an entire new audience. I mean, they were part of from my point of view, I didn't get into them at the very beginning. I did hear Creep way too many times. I would say right off the bat, my favorite all-time radio song is a beautiful ballad called Fake Plastic Trees, and I'll get to that. Now, that doesn't really give you a clue about my favorite record because it's not my favorite record. And amongst these 9 records, there's not one bad album. They never made a bad studio album from my point of view. And they did merge from that guitar band to a band more experimental, art rock, electronic, hip hop a little bit, trip hop, just tape loops and things. And I really love the experimental work, electronic work of Tom York. His solo albums, Erasure and other things he's done are really beautiful, and I buy all that stuff. And I really am a big fan of Johnny Greenwood's, his classical work, his personal work, his soundtracks for There May Be Blood, There Will Be Blood, and A Perfect Thread. I just think those are gorgeous neoclassical records. I'm not showcasing there. In terms of CDs, I don't collect all the remix records, although I do have Radiohead's TKOL remix album, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an Airbag, How Am I Driving? This is a EP, but I'm not a full-bodied, full-on collector, although I am a big fan of the artwork on all their records. And there's 2 people I would be remiss in mentioning when you talk about the work, the records, the artwork of Radiohead, and that's Nigel Godrich, who produced most of the records and really became sort of an integral part of Radiohead in terms of the production and the experimentation and the recording, and also worked with Tom York on his solo records as a part, even touring with them. And also Stanley Donwood, the artist who went to art school with Tom York, and was friends of his before the beginning of Radiohead, really, or as they were starting out. And Stanley Donwood's real name is Dan Rickwood, and his artwork is an integral part of this, and I'm going to showcase that as we go along, because when you see this collection of records I have, 2 of which I only have on compact discs, but I have gone many times with the expanded editions, with the expanded artwork. And I think it's a really important part of the band's vision, the band's visuals, and their presentation. And those of you who watched my channel before know how much of a fan of the art, the design, the photography of albums. And there's been a handful of artists over the years that have really collaborated on an ongoing basis with a photographer, a painter, an illustrator, designer. And to me, that really, puts them in a different category about the whole vision of their work and how they present their work. So without further ado, 9 albums, starting with number 9. Now, as I said, Radiohead has made no bad albums as far as I'm concerned. I think there are some people that who started out as fans of theirs with their guitar-based bands, and I think they left bands like Oasis, and whether it's Britpop like Travis or even Coldplay, God forbid I mention their name in a Radiohead ranking. All these other bands, I think they just left them behind. They become more artistic, more experimental. Okay, starting at number 9 is Hail to the Thief. Hail to the Thief with great cover artwork by Stanley Donwood. And what's great about his work in collaboration with Tom York's lyrics, there's a whole imagery. It's image-based and lyrically based on everything from the political, geopolitical climate change, and it really reflects on the cover art of this record. And he usually creates a whole booklet, whether it's on vinyl or on the CD version, in terms of this, in this case, in terms of mapping, in terms of, you know, what the world's coming through the internet and, you know, through social media and everything. So intense album in some ways. And again, Nigel Goodrich was a part of this, and this was one of the few albums at the time, as after their experimentations with Amnesiac and Kid A, where they went into the studio again and did most of the basic tracks live. They did everything live. Less loops, less overdubs, although there are some mixed in here. But this is number 9 from 2003, Hail to the Chief. Again, they never did a bad album, but this is the bottom of this particular list from me. Okay, 2011, this is King of Limb. Again, amazing artwork, a beautiful artwork, and it's kind of like a fairy tale art thing by Stanley Donwood. Again, more painterly-like. I mean, all his work is painterly-like, but it's a little, it looks darker. It looks kind of scary, and like Brother Grimm's, you could think of that as a Brother Grimm's ghostly Halloween type look. This is a double 10-inch record. This is the original version on vinyl that I got. Again, a lot of little artwork, parts and pieces with these records, with these gorgeous, gorgeous paintings. So this record's a bit of a darker record too. There are more loops, there are more sampling that they had done in a while. Really good record again, ethereal but darker. Maybe depressing for some people, but wonderful record. And this is The King of Limbs by Radiohead, coming at number 8 on my list. Okay, number 7, Pablo Honey. This is their debut album from 2003, I believe. And this is the record that did pretty good on the charts, but obviously Creep, the song Creep, really exploded finally. And it's a great song. It's one of those songs that just got overplayed and overplayed. If I hear another, you know, guitar-based video game with Creep and some of these songs on it again, I think I could push that aside. But Pablo Honey is a great record. Again, more guitar-based, a big popular record of their early fan base, and of course their debut, a really wonderful record. Radiohead coming in at number 7 on my list. Coming in number 7, Radiohead. Coming at number 6. Now you can see that 6 is still a great high number, but out of 9 albums it's lower, and this is a favorite of so many people. Again, this is more of a guitar-based album. This has my favorite song by Radiohead, and their most, to me, melodic song, Fake Plastic Trees. I would play that song over and over again. And that might be the first song that got me into the band. Creep, I heard it, but I hadn't bought any of their albums. So I heard this album, and I bought this album because of Fake Plastic Trees. And every time, you know, when I used to travel a lot and I had this on my headset, I would play that song 3 or 4 times in a row. There's something about it, the melody, the lyrics, it's just gorgeous. This is number 6. The Bends, the song The Bends is a great song. Again, anthem-like, more guitar-based than they would become later on. But coming at number 6 on my Radiohead ranking is The Bends by Radiohead. Coming at number 5 is A Moon-Shaped World. This is an expanded edition. Again, I'm a big fan of the Stanley Donwood artwork, so I'll show you some of the panels, some of the paintings they did with this. This was a very personal album. Written by Tom York, mainly because his ex-wife died of cancer soon before this album came out. And he wrote, there's a lot of personal angst on here, a lot of loss of love, of life. There's, again, more geopolitical, kind of going against the hate movement that was happening around Europe at the time. But this book and this artwork and this package is just really lovely. It has CDs, LPs, paintings, typography. Coming in number 5, again, more of their electronic-based music, some guitar work, obviously, more loops, and just a really lovely record. Coming in number 5, Radiohead, Moonshaped World. Coming in at number 4, this is 2001's Amnesiac. Amnesiac is a favorite of mine, and there's 2 albums by Radiohead that my son and I really got into at the time. My son was, I think, 9, 10 years old when Kid A came out, and the following year, this album came out. And I used to play both these albums, and Joseph and I just fell in love with these 2 albums. Now, Amnesiac is really kind of a companion album to Kid A, because they had a lot of tracks left over from Kid A. They considered doing a double album. It could have been a great double album, like the White Album. Some people, when you talk about the White Album, say, oh, it should have been a single album, cut out the Revolution Number 9 in this. But I think it makes it as a double album, and like Tusk, Fleetwood Mac, a lot of experimental stuff. This would have been a fantastic double album in 2000 with Amnesiac. But they added some tracks, they recorded some more tracks. Like this is very much like Kid A. I think, you know, it's not as engaging to me as Kid A, but there's some beautiful, beautiful songs on here. So coming in at number 4, Amnesiac, the companion, the follow-up to the great Kid A. Coming in at number 4 is In Rainbows. This is the expanded edition, slipcase edition, with great artwork again by Stanley Donwood. In Rainbows. This is an important record on so many levels. First of all, this artwork is beautiful, and I'll go through it and show it to you. This was a big transition period for Radiohead. This is number 3 on my top rankings of Radiohead records. Radiohead had gotten out of their contract with EMI, and this is their first independent direct release. They did something that no one had really done at the time with, from the internet point of view of selling. They offered this record for you, for me, digitally for any price you wanted to pay. You could pay a penny, you could pay $10, you could pay $100. You'd get it. Of course, there were CD versions, there were vinyl versions, expanded versions. I went for the big, giant expanded version. So they got a lot of support from their audience, and it was a really wonderful, fair thing to do. Democratic in a way, going direct to the people. They were amongst the first to do something like this. Beautiful record. There's some more pop sensibilities on this record than the last couple, but they bring it back with loops and electronic effects, and it's a self-released album. In Rainbows. Great artwork, great design. Again, Stanley Donwood and his design are just amazing. Very influenced. There's a New York designer that was really popular in the 80s and 90s, still around. Her name is Paula Shear. I think she was a partner in the design firm Pentagram out of New York. And this was very influenced by her work. Beautifully designed, beautifully packaged. Again, CDs fall out of these little things here. Look at that typeface. Incredible, right? Look at these paintings. There's a psychedelic sense to this music too. Obviously not in the classic sense. Like I've said on some of my videos that part of Radiohead has psychedelic elements. Now, I've had people say, "No, Maslow, what are you, cracked? They're not psychedelic at all." Psychedelic in the term of the experimentation of their music. No, they don't sound like the Grateful Dead, although sometimes ethereal, they can have a little Dark Star influence. They don't sound like Country Joe and the Fish or the Velvet Underground or what we know as a 60s psychedelic sound. It's a modern sound of that experimental improvisation. Again, some of their work is recorded live. Some of it is loops and put together in the studio again with Niles Godrich as Nigel Godrich as in some ways a full partner in the outfit in the band, with great, Johnny Greenwood and his brother in the band. What a great important band. So this is the beautiful larger package of In Rainbows, and this is number 3 on my rankings. I think this just could be their most beautiful and just dramatic cover. I love this cover. Probably my favorite cover of all their covers. Beautiful. Okay, coming at number 2. Once I say number 2, you're gonna know what number 1 is, but that's okay. I think to a lot of people who have been following Radiohead over their entire career would probably list this record at number 1. This is the 20th anniversary box set, and number 2 is OK Computer. Let me get it out so you can see what the cover actually looks like. And I really love this cover too. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. This record I didn't get right when it came out. And of course, the year this came out, whether it's Q and Mojo, the British magazines, and so many magazines rated this the best album of the year, possibly of the decade, a turning point for the band. This was their 3rd album, OK Computer. Some refer to it as the closest Radiohead would create like a Pink Floyd record. This is their Pink Floyd record. Experimentation, voices, there's the, it has all the elements. It's almost a perfect album by some measure. And I could have easily put this at number 1, but it didn't hit me like my number 1 choice at the time. And that's why this is a personal list. And I could easily agree with someone if they put OK Computer at number 1. It's probably the more important record, maybe. It's probably the more commercial record than my number 1 pick. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I love commercial records. This is just a stunning record. And again, Stanley Donwood's beautiful artwork in this expanded edition. Of course, this has a vinyl and CDs. In this case, it comes with a cassette, little sketchbook, notebook, lyrics, and artwork again. Stanley Donwood artwork. I mean, again, I've mentioned this before. There are certain bands, it's kind of like Elton John and Bernie Taupin, where Bernie Taupin is really important. They're a partnership. He is the lyricist. He doesn't get all the, the onstage love, but that's fine with him. He's a great writer. Keith Reed was also like that. If you know the band Procol Harum, Keith Reed picture was on, their first 4 or 5 albums. He was included. He was the lyricist. He did not perform with them, but he wrote a lot of the lyrics for Procol Harum. And I love when an artist is an important part. In a way, you could compare it to Monty Python, that Terry Gilliam, the illustrator, the artist. That was really important in those early Monty Python TV shows and movies, that the animation was just an important part, a bridge that linked all the sketches together. And I would argue that Stanley Donwood is like the glue that brings these songs together visually and presents these albums to all of us. So, gorgeous book, sketches, wonderful artwork. OK Computer. That means number 1 is Kid A. Kid A. I remember the moment in my office in San Francisco. I went with my buddy Weinberg to Tower Records on a new release day, and I picked up the compact disc of this record. I hadn't heard any of it. I put it on, and the opening of everything in its right place just blew my mind. The sonics of that, the pan potting of the song. I played that song. I just had to stop it and play that song probably maybe 7 or 8 times. I blasted it in my office. We were a ground floor loft space in the Mission District of San Francisco. And it was just like an oral sexual sensation, if that makes any sense. I just love that song. To me, that's one of the best pieces of music of the last 25 years, 30 years, 2000 this came out. So 21 years now, 21 years. Again, as I said earlier, I would drive with my son Joseph and we would play this album all the time. We both fell in love with this album. So in a lot of ways, there's that father and son connection of something. You have your 10-year-old son and you just get so into an album. I think that was one of the first groups that he really got into. And I hark back, and I was about that exact age when I first heard the Beatles. And, you know, not comparing Kid A to the Beatles, but why not? This is a dramatic departure. Again, this turned off some of their guitar-based fans. This is their fourth album. It was different. It was dramatic. It was beautiful. Kid A, the national anthem, had to disappear completely. In Limbo, motion picture soundtrack. Again, great artwork by Stanley Donwood. You know, just gorgeous paintings. This came out, I know, as a 10-inch. Also, this is the 12-inch. These are the reissues that came out several years ago, but it's a beautiful record. Ethereal, electronic, ambient. If you don't love Tom York's vocals, you're probably not going to get into any of these records, but he's got this vocal sense of sometimes his overdubs, sometimes his sort of tenor harmonies he does with himself, and with effects and loops and things. I just love this stuff. Anyway, the #1 album ranking for this Radiohead, 9 studio albums for me, for Mazzy, is Kid A. So check this out. What are your favorite records? I'm so excited every time they put something out. I think they're one of the more interesting bands. And what's great about it, to me, the best artists that move ahead, that push forward, that don't just copy everything that they've done in the past. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. You know what to do. Just enjoy the music. Enjoy these records. Mazzy loves you.